Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Ashtoons Storytime, this time number 3. So, as I am taking this video, it is about 1 o'clock in the afternoon on July the 11th, 2023, and I am standing in Johnny Appleseed Park, right outside of Fort Wayne, Indiana. Actually, still in the city limits of Fort Wayne, Indiana. But today's story actually has nothing to do with Johnny Appleseed. That one comes a little later. Today's story, however, has everything to do with another famous person from Fort Wayne. It's commemorated right here on this street sign. Let's get into it. Harry William Baals was born in Fort Wayne, Indiana on a Tuesday, November the 16th, 1886. To put that in perspective, that would have put his birth only 21 years after the end of the Civil War. Now, some reports in my research say that in the late 1800s, testicles were not yet described as balls. So perhaps his parents didn't totally understand the double entendre that they were going to put their child through when they named him Harry. I kind of have a hard time believing that personally. It seems like no matter what decade you were born in, the word balls would probably still have that double meaning. But at any rate, Harry must have taken it in stride because 48 years later, in 1934, he was still living in Fort Wayne and was elected as mayor for the first time, and went on to be the longest-running mayor in Fort Wayne's history, first serving 3 terms straight from 1934 to 1947. That would have put his time in office going through the tumultuous times of the Great Depression and also World War II. Harry was a Republican, and one of the first things he did when he came into office was find a way to consolidate city departments and actually lower the tax rates. Wow, I think that's part of the reason why he was so loved and reelected so many times. Do we hear of any politicians nowadays doing anything like that, actually lowering tax rates? He also launched construction on the city's big sewer treatment plant, which is still being used to this day. During the Great Depression, he also directed war material drives and upgraded the city's equipment and services, and also broke ground on, I think it's pronounced Bayer Field, which is now Fort Wayne's International Airport. During the 1930s, one of his greatest accomplishments was getting the old nickel plate railroad track that ran through downtown elevated high enough that it opened up the flow of traffic and essentially allowed the development of the entire north side of the city. There's also a famous story that floats around the city of Fort Wayne that gives us a little bit of an insight to the personality of Mayor Harry Baals, and it has to do with a newscaster named Bob Chase that worked for a local AM radio station. He had a story that came across his desk that featured the name Harry Baals, and he didn't want to say the word balls on air. And so when he reported the story, he instead pronounced the last name Bells. Well, a few minutes later, a call came into the radio station trying to get a hold of Bob Chase. And when he was finally able to get a hold of him, Bob Chase heard the voice of the mayor say, "Son, this is your mayor, and I pronounce my name Balls." And so by this, we can tell that Mayor Harry Baals at some point decided not to shy away from the double entendre of his name, but instead to lean into it and to use the novelty of it and its ability to stick in people's mind to his own favor. But somehow the city must have lost this lesson because years after his death, in 2011, the city was building a new big government building and put out a vote as to what the new government center should be called. And overwhelmingly, the vote said that it should be called the Harry Baals Government Center. But despite the overwhelming vote, they decided to disregard it and instead call it Citizen Square. which is appropriate, I think, because the officials that decided to override the vote and instead just call it Citizen Square are themselves, I think, pretty square. At the end of his third term in 1947, he took some time off from being mayor, but only 7 years later he was reelected and came back in 1951, but this time was only able to serve 3 years before he died in office from a kidney infection in 1954. On a more personal note, he was married to the same woman for 27 years, a Minnie Baals, and with her he raised a daughter, Marcel, and a son, Donald. And he was only separated from Minnie when she died in 1936 from pneumonia at age 47. He did not marry again for 18 years until he finally married a woman named Irene and was with her when he died in 1954. And so that concludes today's story, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this. I find this story, some of you might find it silly, but I find it very inspirational. I mean, this guy was named Harry Baals, and look at all the stuff he was able to accomplish. What is your excuse? So that is going to be it for this one. Now, before I let you go, I'm going to read a passage once again from the best book to ever grace the public domain. This time, the New International Version. We're going with Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord and not for human masters. The Bible is not interested in hearing our excuses, our setbacks, our inabilities. It's very clear that whatever job that you have put yourself to, you're supposed to work at it with all your heart, as though whatever you're working on is going to be presented right to Jesus himself, not to human masters. So, I think Harry Baals would probably say it like this: whatever you do in life, go out and grab that life by the... Guys, it doesn't matter where you are in life or what you have done. As long as you are still breathing, there is still time to get your heart right with God. upci.org is a good place to start. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share this video around, and I look forward to the next story time, and I will see you all then.